This is your fortnightly instalment where I interview a trailblazing physiotherapist that has shaped the profession we are today. In celebrating their journey, knowledge and insights, you gain the opportunity to plan and guide your own professional journey. My name is Doug Carey and welcome to Physio+10. Welcome past and new listeners to Physio+10. Great to have you back. Special guest today is Abbie Norrish, and Abbie's going to tell us a story about how she became a physio, why she stuck with it, and also something new and exciting that she's got into in the last couple of years. So always start these conversations, Abbie, with a bit of background, like where you grew up and what your early schooling involved.
Yeah. So I grew up in Mukinbudin, which is a small country town 3.5 hours northeast of Perth. So I went to primary school, Mukinbudin Primary School. I think we had a total of 90 kids from pre-primary to year 10. And then I headed off to boarding school in year 8, or that's at 13 years old, in Perth. So very lucky for that opportunity. And I just had the best childhood.
So shout out to all our friends in Mucka, because not many people would know that sort of part of the world, but I've got a couple of good friends there too. So the transition, like literally for rural kids to head from, as you say, a school of 90 from 0 to year 10 to, I'm guessing, a private boarding school where you're suddenly lobbing into some pretty established networks, peer groups. How did you find that transition, Abbie?
Yeah. I have a twin sister, so it was probably a little bit less daunting because I wasn't alone. But we went from a class of 20 to a class of 150. And I think all I remember is being stoked. I love people. I love making friends. So I then had, in our boarding school year, 60 new friends. So I found that aspect really enjoyable. And it's probably what I remember most.
Now we're jumping ahead here, but we're also going back in time. Would you say that's a personality trait that you've got, that you just love new experiences and love meeting new people, and that's just it? You just love it?
Yeah, I would say that it is a personality trait. Something I've been reflecting on recently is that when you grow up in a country town, you're friends with everyone. You're friends with people your age, people 5 years younger, people 20 years older. So I think that really set me up for, liking people and loving hearing their stories. And it set me up well for boarding school because I was just so open to meeting new people and hearing their stories.
Yeah. So once you had done the boarding school in year 11, year 12, how was it you came to decide to go to physio?
Yeah, I had a really positive physio experience. We had a visiting physio that would come once a month to Mukinbudin. And even though I was at boarding school, he would be my treating physio. And yeah, I had a really great experience with him. So that was one of the reasons. And then also, to be quite frank, I thought deep and hard with how I would want to move throughout my days. And so I was very deterred from being a lawyer because there was no way I wanted to be sitting on my bottom for 12 hours. And I liked the aspect of physios moving around, or I perceived them to be moving around a lot. So I hate to say it, but that was actually one of the huge reasons why I chose physio.
Sometimes on these podcasts, this question comes down to some very basic realities, and you're not the only person that sort of looked at physio as being an active profession, which I think is great because it's a very healthy perception. I was just listening to RN ABC Radio National this morning, Norman Swan on the Health Report, and they do like these 3 and 5 minute synopsises, and this particular one was on a new bit of research where they've looked at this thing of sitting and how even just you might do an hour of exercise in the morning, fantastic. But if you sort of sit down for the next 8 or 9 or 10 hours, you're basically in the same category for, heart and risk factors as a person that pretty much sits all day long. So this prolonged sitting, be it lack of blood flow, stagnation of just hormonal factors, it really is becoming a bit of an issue. So yeah, it's good to get up and move around, but we've got to somehow get it through the day as well. It can't just be that 1 hour of exercise once a day sort of stuff. All right. So physios don't have square bottoms from sitting down. You like that. And you liked probably the fact it was sort of to do with sports and activities. And did you go Curtin or Notre Dame or look over East? What was your preference?
Notre Dame. And the preference there was I really like making deep connections, and that was the vibe and the experience that I got from Notre Dame. I also got early acceptance, so that also was why I went to Notre Dame. But the preference was at that point in time, I finished in 2014, so we didn't have any online lectures, so everything was funnily enough to say, like there was nothing online. We had to be there for the 30 contact hours. So that was actually another big reason. I wanted to have this learning experience, but I wanted it to be done with people, and that's kind of shaped the way with how I like to work, reflecting on it now. I love collaboration, is a big value of mine. So that would have been the main reason why I chose Notre Dame.
Now, just going back to your family, mum and dad, were they in the health spheres or both farmers?
Yeah, so dad owned a chemical agency, Nutrien.
Yep.
And mum was a homemaker. So they didn't have health background, but our family friends did. We had a local nurse, a visiting GP, and a visiting physio, and that's it.
And what about your twin sister? What did she end up doing when she left boarding school?
So she is in the arts kind of field. She did a Bachelor in Arts, and now she works for a non-for-profit in WA, creating art education programs for Indigenous communities up near Karratha. So very different field from, the science field or health science, but still her assets and her role is in communicating and connecting people. So that's been really nice to see and to learn from different fields.
Yeah.
The same thing.
Well, you're both communicating, you're both helping. So you're both in that sort of caring profession, just slightly different facets of it. Are you the only two kids in the family?
And then we have a older sister. She's 2 years older, and she's a teacher, and she lives rurally in Bulga, so 1.5 hours east of Perth. And yeah, very happy on a farm with a beautiful little boy.
Right. So through the uni, was there anything that particularly for you stood out, either in a negative or a positive aspect from your undergrad?
From a positive perspective, I just liked learning. So I'm pretty happy with most courses and learning opportunities because it's a great opportunity to learn new things. Negative experience. I can't think of any. I had some challenging professional relationships in the supervising role through prac placement. I have this story if I can share it.
Sure. I won't tell anybody.
It was my last placement, and the supervisor that was supposed to supervise me, she was unwell, so she had to take leave, and I had a supervisor that wasn't supposed to be a supervisor, and yeah, it was a very tricky or traumatic experience, which kind of led to her saying that I had the worst communication skills that she'd ever come across. I didn't mention at that moment I just won the communication award for the whole year. So it was a really interesting experience to navigate that. But ultimately it was a helpful learning experience. That would be my only negative. I enjoyed every aspect of uni. Just the dedication and working towards a goal and doing it with a great group of people.
Yeah. Look, not dwelling on, I would see that as a very positive experience because it highlights straight away how the same individual can be perceived completely differently by two cohorts of people. And it gives you the opportunity I mean, it's hard when you're a new grad or not even a graduate. It's hard when you're trying to impress, you're trying to get marks, you're trying to establish your own confidence within your profession, and to have to run up into a brick wall like that, it's confronting. But at the same time, it gives you a chance to review who you think you are and what you think you're doing, and is there something you need to evaluate? So self-evaluation. We had a similar one in our undergraduate year, where we were a group about 50 people, same thing, small group, fantastic bunch of colleagues, and I think it was about 7 or 8 blokes in the whole sort of year. And every one of those 7 blokes, even though I think 2 or 3 of them got the top marks for the year in second year, that we all failed our hydrotherapy unit. And we sort of said, hang on, there's something going on here, some sort of discrimination. But that also, it's the only thing I've ever failed sort of academically in my life. And even though I knew 6 other guys had failed it as well, and I thought there's something going on here that's probably not to do with academics, it still was like a brick wall in my face going, well, you're not good enough, maybe you need to reevaluate and all that sort of stuff. And looking back on it, it's a very obvious thing to look at, but when you're invested in it emotionally at the time, it's kind of hard. I think it's good to have somebody from outside to step in and sort of say, by the way, if you look at it from this perspective and you take it into context, don't go home and cry about it. So
Absolutely.
that's good. Yeah.
It's a good reflection opportunity, and to hear from other people with other leadership styles. And I think it was probably an insight into the real world and how you navigate that and how you stay constructive and stay moving forward and true to yourself. So many learnings. Those kind of learnings are always the biggest learnings in life, I always find.
Yeah, the old silver lining is a great little saying when it comes to the storm cloud, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. You hit the new status of being a physiotherapist. I always love to find out what it means for people. Was it the paycheck? Was it the freedom of professional expansion, the status? What was it you remember about being a newly minted physio?
I do remember the first bed that I bought with my first paycheck. So that stands out. I was pretty stoked. I still have it, actually. I'm probably never gonna
time to renew. 10 years, time to renew.
Bed frame, not bed mattress. And I think it was the sense of I just specifically remember being like, I've got this certificate now, no one can ever take it away from me. And of course they can if I do something wrong. But it was this sense of agency, sense of accomplishment, and a sense of possibility of what I could achieve, having the accreditation or the qualification. But also probably this sense of like, oh wow, it's a responsibility and I really want to make the impact that I want to make. So I'd say all of those is what I remember most.
Talking about the responsibility, did you feel like you were ready for that responsibility?
No, not at all. And for someone that has very high personal expectations of themselves, I've never, it's something that's just a quality of mine. It was, it was tricky because I wanted to be here. And this is a podcast. I wanted to be high. I wanted to be somewhere where it was going to take me some time to get qualified and to really have that experience. You can't fast track experience. So I didn't feel that I was ready, but I did have a supportive team around me. And, a boss that was like, it's going to take some time. We've got you. So I guess that helped to calm the nerves.
Yeah, I think for new grad physios or recent grad physios listening and or watching that, I would say the same thing. I think that's perhaps an expectation that we need to realize that you are going to have responsibility, but probably you can't expect to be able to fulfill that straight away because you've got training, but you haven't got experience. And that there's a bit of it's a bit of bittersweet sort of realization that you've got the certificate, you're now a physiotherapist, but really your journey has only just started in that sort of way. So how did your career develop over the next couple of years? Like, what did you, because like I know, and other people are probably starting to get to realize that you're pretty goal focused, pretty, things don't just come out of left field and you take them. You sort of, I can imagine you've got a toilet roll piece of paper that long with all a list of goals and expectations and outcomes. So what did you decide to do when you graduated?
Yeah, no one's ever said that, but I am quite goal focused. And what brings to mind, um, I'm just going to be cementing the fact that I am goal focused, because before I graduated, I did work experience with 7 different private practices. I had a clear idea that I didn't know what that scene looked like. So I had some kind of insight into, I had made the decision that I was going to go private practice, and I can talk about why in a second. But I wanted to get a feel for what kind of practice I wanted to work at. So I did, I just contacted a whole heap of people and did 3 hours observation at, 6 to 7 different private practices. And one of them is the one I chose, and it was a northern private practice, physiotherapy private practice. And the reason why I chose that is because, like, the boss there was, I think she had the qualities that I resonated with, and I was really looking for a private practice that practiced best practice. So I was well aware that you can, everyone has different goals. Every private practice has different goals and objectives and ways to achieve those goals. And I really wanted to work for someone that where we had alignment and where I was going to get the best support possible. So that's why I made the decision to go and work in Northern for 3 years.
Yeah, because we talk about back in the day, but the concept of going from undergrad to direct to private practice wasn't really hitting its straps. I mean, now it's more than 50% will end up out of a hospital environment those first year or two. So was there a new graduate program, so to speak of? Because that's, again, kind of a new type thing in the last 5 or 6 years, I guess.
So yeah, the Northern practice had a 2-year program. It was very clear on the goals and the outcomes for what kind of support that I would receive. And I mentioned that I'm a collaborator, and it was going to be, I think it was 1 hour a week with my boss, and then a 1 hour team meeting a week. And it was that aspect of professional development. And also there was only 4 to 5 of us. So again, I'm seeing a pattern here: small groups, lots of opportunities for connection, and
deep connections.
That's true. So that was, I did love that structure, and I loved having very specific expectations for what I was going to bring, and then what team was going to bring, and what my boss was going to bring to the table. So it was definitely, that was one of the biggest reasons why I chose that specific private practice.
And as a new grad at that time, looking back on it now, would you do anything different? Again, if new grads are listening to this, is there any observations or experiences you'd sort of say, in hindsight, I might do this differently?
No, actually. And I think it comes back to, because I thought of everything so deeply. And I had that, 7 private practices, and there was some ones that I was horrified at. So I don't know, I don't usually say this, but I was quite proud that I'd done that. I'd done the prep work. So I knew, like, the decision I made was, I'd really thought about it, and I'd really considered about what I was looking for. So I don't have any regrets.
Yeah, so a good take-home message, test out the field, see what's available, and make a decision based upon that rather than just going in for something. Did you consider hospital?
Never, actually. And I think it's a little bit like my experience with netball and hockey. And why I talk to that is, at about 7 years old, I decided that netball, I definitely respect all the netballers out there. But I decided that, I don't know, in my brain, I thought there was a cap, there was a limit to how the skills that I could develop. And for some reason, I decided that wasn't the case for hockey. And I would say that was the same bizarre decision I made from a private practice and public setting. I was under the impression that there was a lot of politics and bureaucracy in the hospital system, and I think out the square. I'm very I'm not linear thinking. I love to really run with different ideas and not have any limitations to how I help that person to meet their meaningful goal. And that's where I really aligned with private practice. So yeah, I'm still keeping that door open, but that was how I came to that decision. I don't think that was as rational or as previous decisions, but it's kind of just how I intuitively always felt.
Yeah. So you left Northern Physio, and transitions always have a reason. So you made a decision to go somewhere else. What was that?
I made a decision to go down to Margaret River to another private practice, purely life reasons. Is why I made that. I've just seen you raise your eyebrows. Yeah, I always wanted to go to Margaret River, and I thought I could do it in 30 years or I could do it now. And the way I live my life is make the most of it right here, right now. So that was what prompted the decision. And I got the worst hay fever in Northam. So that was a secondary reason. Yeah, you really do have to be your best self. You have to have a full cup to give from the overflow. I believe that. And from a health perspective, the hay fever got the better of me. So I chose to see if a different environment changed that, and it did. So yeah, bizarre, but that's kind of what led to my next decision, job-wise and move-wise.
Yeah. So you went to Margaret for the cheese, the wine, or the surf?
All three.
And the chocolate.
And I loved it. Very different experience. So I grew up in the Central Wheat Belt, and my experience was people really live to work. Again, that's a very personal opinion. But when I moved to Margaret River, it was very people work to live. And I love that classic example is get all the cancellations when the surf's good. And I quite liked being in that environment, and just that shift in values was quite rewarding for me, to see that there's different ways you can do it depending on how you want to live your life.
Yeah, I think Esperant's pretty similar like that. People say, so how come you're not working on a Saturday or Sunday? So, well, someone once told me this is a lifestyle practice, and I agree to it. I could work 7 days a week in Perth. Why would I do that here, sort of thing? Yeah, got to enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I think the answer to this question is no, but I'll just ask it. Was there anybody influencing your decisions along the way, or this is all a solo decision process?
Yeah, solo, with the bigger goals I had in mind, which I probably hadn't formulated in my head, but it was just going with my gut.
Yeah. So if along the lines of the types of jobs, the clinical experiences you're after top quality, lots of variety, ability to expand if you wanted to, and quite a large degree of freedom of movement in regards to the types of things that you wanted to do. Within the realm of private practice, what were the areas that were starting to draw your attention? And was that what you thought, or was that what came along?
So back into my teenager years, I had a experience of chronic pain or persistent pain for 5 years, from the age of 17 to 22. 20 or 23. And I know that because I made a commitment to myself in my 3rd year that if I didn't recover from persistent pain, I wasn't going to graduate, because I did believe that physio, if I couldn't help myself as a physiotherapist with the skills and knowledge, then I didn't know who I could help. So it was kind of high stakes. So that passion started before I graduated. And then I guess it did influence my career direction, because I was looking for people around me that could support and help me understand persistent pain better, and ultimately help people in persistent pain. So that's shaped my passion. That passion has shaped everything since I've recovered from persistent pain.
So 17 to 22, 23, that was basically, third year physio through to your first few years of graduating?
So 17, so 16, 17, so year 11.
Yeah. Okay.
To third year. And then, as with all pain, it doesn't just go away. It faded out over a period of 12 months after that, but enough for me to be like, yep, there's something in this physio thing.
And you were doing this when you were an undergraduate. So what sort of things were you finding useful for you for that particular episode of persistent pain?
So I read a book by Professor Laura Mosley, and that really, well, initially I hated it. I remember throwing it across the room, and I've told him this because he's now my boss, because it challenged every single one of my beliefs, and I was really frustrated and I was really angry. And then I tried a lot of different things that were more passive in nature, and my pain didn't change. So I then picked the book up and goes, and then maybe there's something to this. And I had to point out, I actually didn't know I had chronic pain until a lecturer was specifically citing the symptoms of chronic pain in second or third year. And it was only when I realized that I had chronic pain that I realized that I could be doing more. And it's not, I just assumed that you get old, you get pain. Like, I just didn't know any different. So it's fascinating, even as a health professional, when you do have all these learnings, you just don't know any different. So reading, learning, applying, they were some of the things that really helped.
Yeah, I mean, you can always take that as a little vignette of the average patient too. Like, often when we broach this subject with them, and I've seen it here because we've been in Esperance for 25 years. So you might see some patients, have a discussion, sort of say, look, this is what's going on. I know you've seen the masseuse, the Bowen therapist, the chiro, go on and on and on. And now you're asking me for some dry needling or something again, but the pattern is that those things aren't going to work for you. We need to dive a bit deeper, and we need to look at these other contributing factors, because pain has got many aspects to it. And while they don't throw the book at you, they don't read book, they don't come back. So it's all right. But then a year later or 18 months later, they come back again. They say, oh, well, you talked about this and you talked about that, and I've tried doing these other things for another year and a half, but it's not working. It's not changed like you said. Maybe we could start exploring some of those ideas now. So I think it's just speaks to the fact that even if you're seeing a patient now, all you can do is float the balloon. I love that expression. You float the balloon, you give the idea about what might be the situation they consider. Some people pick up the balloon and run with it, and some people just let it go. But that doesn't mean they won't come back in time, now knowing that they need to consider it in a bit more depth.
It's about meeting them where they're at, which is planning. And I've been asked a lot about my pain journey, and it wasn't just one health professional that did it. It was a journey, my own individual journey, and just acknowledge that there was many people that planted the seeds, years before. So we don't, it's about meeting that person where they're at, and if they're ready, what is it? The horse and water, the horse will come to the water. I'm really good at stuffing up metaphors.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I think that's the one you're looking for.
Exactly the one. Yeah. So great life learnings, great professional learnings as well.
Yeah. And it gives you a lot of empathy for that patient, because you can actually sort of say that, look them in the eye and say, look, I can understand where you're coming from, because I've been there and I understand you might not want to take this on board now, but I'm just letting you know, because down the track, it might resonate with you. It might make more sense to you. I love the analogy of, like, you don't see the tire adverts in the newspaper unless you're shopping for tires. It's the same thing. Unless it's on your radar, unless you have an understanding or comprehension of it, it's not going to resonate and you're not going to take it on board. But that doesn't mean down the track something might trigger, another person might mention it. So you think, hang on, this is not the first time I've heard this story. Maybe I need to explore it a bit further.
Exactly.
So we've talked about a couple of private practice gigs. You've alluded to your interest in chronic pain, and it was around about this time that I think we first met when you started doing the dry needling courses. And I must admit, I was struck then by your intensity and your laser light focus. But you also started to move into the pain field. So I think that's when you asked me about the pain connection and stuff like that. So do you want to just talk about now how it was or why you decided to explore the pain revolution process when you're working in Mark River?
So I wanted more qualifications that could help to provide credibility to what I was saying and thinking. So I would always, with the patients that I was working with, use a lot of metaphors. Much to in Northern we had curtains, so my colleagues were constantly laughing at the bizarre metaphors I was coming up with to try and help someone understand pain. And what I really struggled with is not having that theory behind like what I was saying. And I didn't have that confidence. Confidence huge, isn't it? And I didn't have confidence to say, actually, modern science is underpinning what I'm saying. And so that's when I started to explore different opportunities. And I came across the local pain educator program. It was in its infancy. Pain Revolution is a not-for-profit, changing the way rural and regional communities understand and approach persistent pain. So it was very aligned with my life's purpose, really. And it provided a 2-year program to rural health professionals that wanted to learn more about pain and, improve pain outcomes in their rural communities. So there was incredible alignment there. And the local pain educator program included a professional certificate in pain science. So that's the reason why I got involved. I also have always worked with the most beautiful people, and that's an incredible value of mine. So the practices I've worked with have really lovely people, but I felt really isolated and alone in trying to make sense of chronic pain and working out the best ways to treat it. And my colleagues were like, it's not our thing. And just handball to me, and I'd have a full caseload of complex chronic pain, but no one to talk to about it. And I found that really isolating and burdensome. But it was also my greatest goal in life to work with people with chronic pain. So the local pain educator program and Pain Revolution connects people that are all interested in chronic pain together as a way of it doesn't get easier working with people with chronic pain, but we can actually be a sounding board for you, and we can learn about this together because we don't have the solutions. The science has more of an understanding of what we can do, but we still don't have the A=B, the magic pill, which is interesting, isn't it? Like, patients are looking for the magic pill, but as clinicians, we also are. I always have to kind of step back and be like, Abbie, where are you looking? Like, it's so interesting how we naturally go for the magic pill versus embracing the uncertainty. So I signed up. It wasn't supposed to be a WA for 5 years, but they said if I could get the funding through Rural Health West, then they'll have me on board. So I was the first WA local pain educator in 2018, and it's been just a really awesome journey ever since.
We've got a McDonald's just down the road from us. And when people come in with that sort of philosophy, I sort of say, look, health is not like the drive-through. You don't just walk up to the speaker and say, like a new neck or a new back, and then 2 minutes later drive around the corner and they slide it into you. And it's just giving these people the understanding that whilst we as a society have expected things to be online, tap a card, you get it, drive through, it's there in a minute, just all these sorts of things. It's just like, health is not like that. You don't get old, you don't get gray, you don't get wrinkles. you don't get strong, you don't lose weight overnight. Like, these are physiological processes that are tied into biological things plus genetics. And, managing your injury or managing your pain similarly has got those constraints. And it's just like a light bulb for some people. They go, oh, really? Yeah, really. If that's why McDonald's is not selling necks and backs. They're selling Mac burgers and Mac coffees. It's a lot easier to produce. Okay, so you finished up at VAS. Sorry, getting off track. I love those analogies, and my kids hate them because I always.
So thank you for sharing them. I've written McDonald's in capital letters. What a great analogy.
All right, so you come up to a big decision. You've had your time in the WA. You've done your pain local educator program. It's obviously struck a chord with you. You now decide to make a bigger decision than ever. What was that, and why?
So I decided to move to Adelaide through I just got to a point where I'd finished the program, and it was a stage in my life where I kind of wanted to make a big change, and I wanted to immerse myself in complex chronic pain like full time. So I was still at that point in VAS working as a general musculoskeletal physio, and I'd have a bit of chronic pain, and then some people with chronic pain that I'd be working with, or someone would come in with an ankle injury or a neck injury, and I found that I wasn't able to really practice what I was learning. So I chose to make the decision to move to Adelaide, and I went to work for a private practice that worked with return to work SA, so fully work injuries, and people that had 2 years plus chronic pain, looking to return to work or looking to actually return to some kind of quality of life. So the patient load was very specific to persistent pain, and the team were all very passionate people. I've actually always worked with passionate people, but people that were really thriving on persistent pain and what can we do, and innovative ideas for how we can go about that. And I thought it would just be a good opportunity to see what it looked like in the metro world. And I was just blown away by, access. It's so interesting, that different access and opportunities that you have in a metro world versus, rural remote communities. And I guess I went in there with the intention of, okay, what could I learn? Because my passion is always rural and regional, but what could I learn from that and then share or create so that we all have access to healthcare and best practice pain care.
So was there anything that you take away from your experience there that is applicable, like from a metro to a rural remote environment?
Yeah, I would. We're kind of doing it through our Pain Revolution program. And I think even the community that you're creating, it's that you don't have to have people in the same vicinity to create a community of people that want the best for you and want to see you succeed in a professional role. So it's about getting creative and innovative and creating those communities, whether online or in whatever avenue, so that you feel supported in the work that you do. So that was the biggest learning that I learned, that yes, what a privilege to have, 6 people that I could see every day, all day, and they loved pain and were happy to talk about it to death. But if I was in a rural and regional community and I still wanted that, is there another way that we could create this so that you have that support? Because the work that we do is hard. And it doesn't get easier, is what I've learned, but the people can make it easier or more enjoyable along the way.
I think the other challenge for working rural and remote is that you don't have a specificity. Like, I could be a muscle specialist or a sleep researcher, but as you sort of said, you'll see an ankle, then you see a neck, then you see a chronic pain, and you'll see someone with sleep apnea, and then you'll see somebody that's trying to lose weight, then you see someone that's just had a knee replacement. And that all just happens bang, 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 bang. And you can't specialize in a particular demographic of patients because you're seeing such a spectrum, both age and gender and diagnosis. And often you're the only person that's there as well, which is another, it's a bit of a burden. Like you feel like you're the stopgap, the last person. And often they'll say, I've seen everybody else. I'm just trying to see if you can help me. And that for a physio, or I guess any practitioner, can put a fair degree of pressure on them to feel like, well, if I can't help them, this person's cactus. And that's not the case. You don't have that responsibility to help the person. You can do as much as you can do, as best you can do, but you still don't have to take on that responsibility, because that'll burn you out pretty quick.
Yeah, and I guess I'm working with, rural health professionals that are struggling with that. Like, we all want to help. But, we're still, like, I'm finding that with the work that we're doing, we're having to do, my next goal is how can we build more well-being and more leadership, like extra things to support health professionals in rural areas so that they can learn skills outside of what they're taught at university to help support them and help them to stay in the profession, because it can be a heavy weight on your shoulders.
Yeah, well, it is, and I think that comes down to that caring nature. We have our biological caring nature is what drives us into the profession, but we have to also realize that we have to look after ourselves health and wellbeing wise, otherwise we'll get driven out, and that helps nobody. So there needs to be an understanding about a balance there. You came, we'll call it the pain revolution phase. You came to South Australia. You took on the role as a project coordinator. What were your roles and responsibilities for that, Abbie?
So I went purely for the private practice, but my boss, who's Lauren Mosley for Pain Revolution, is also in Adelaide. So that enabled a really great opportunity for me to, do more work for Pain Revolution. So I was working as a project coordinator for 2 days. And what that looked like, we got some money from the federal government, and the project was around creating local pain collectives, which is a group of local health professionals in rural areas, in a rural community, that really want to learn about pain, and want to do it in like a structured format, but also unstructured. Like, there always has to be wine and food available. So that's what brings everyone there. But also just an opportunity to build connections. So my role was to coordinate that. So it looks like a lot of administrative stuff. So it's a very steep learning curve. Not so in the problem solving. I think as a physio, we've got incredibly problem solving skills, but some of those other skills. And yeah, the goal was to just help create bigger communities of people in rural areas that support each other. And I say, like, my experience of creating my own local pain collective in Margaret River, I moved there, I knew one person, and by the end I had 15 people like on my phone that I could call and chat to, and whether it was the local GP or psych or dietitian, and that helped me tremendously feel less alone in the chronic pain space. So that was predominantly the work that I was doing as the project coordinator, and then seeing it through to the, how was it landing? Was it helpful? Was it not helpful? What could we do better, in terms of that evaluation and reflection of the project?
You sort of said you got some funding from the federal government. Is funding an issue? Like, is this an underlying, challenge for the Pain Revolution process?
Yeah, it's huge. I think it's huge for any non-for-profit initiative. And I was struck, though, I went to a mental health rural and regional conference last year, and it was some huge number of non-for-profits in the mental health space that were doing incredible good work for helping people with mental health and getting a lot of funding. And yet we only have 1 to 2 non-for-profits in the chronic pain space. So it's just about building visibility of the work that we do. And then just making those connections and getting people to come along with the journey. So it is a big thing that we're still working on, the funding aspect. But we have a really great program in that many of the federal government or state government initiatives look to provide a project where they provide training and then they leave the community. Whereas our goal is to build like help people in the communities learn more, understand more, and then share it, and then go on their own evolution. So we're building capacity, and that feels really good for me, because I remember growing up and it was a 6-week exercise physiologist coming to Mucka, and it was great, and I was making some great changes, and then they would leave because the funding would dry up. So I really vividly remember that, and that's what kind of drives our programs, is that it is complex, but long-term capacity building and sustainable initiatives that can help.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, listening to the radio, I was listening to Cheryl Kickett, who used to play basketball with my wife, and she now leads a Aboriginal development program somewhere in the Midwest. And she said, look, it's a great program. It's successful. We've been running it year after year after year after year. Fantastic feedback, really good outcomes. But every funding cycle, we have to go back, and we have to go back, and we have to go back. Even though it's a brilliant program, it's been built out, it works. This drain on the process of having to seek short-term funding to keep the program rolling on, even though it's been shown to be one of the most successful intervention programs. It sounds like it's the same thing that you're saying as well. You've got to build that visibility. You've got to try and get funding, but it takes time. And I know, even just having done a PhD, the number of applications I put in after 4 or 5 or 6, I thought, oh, bugger it, for $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000, this is not worth 8 or 10 hours. I might as well just go and see a few more patients, because at the end of the day, you can waste a lot of time seeking funding, and it's a bit demoralizing too. I think that's the other thing too. Gets on your sort of note. Right, moving on. You did your project coordinator role, and then that's grown just recently into being the actual general manager. How has your role changed in doing that process?
Yeah, I now kind of oversee all our activities. So we have our local pain educator program, but also our fundraising Go the Distance program, which is a month-long fundraising event for all Australians to bring more awareness to pain, and supporting our program by walk, running, riding, all those fun things for the month of I think next year it's going to be February. And then we also have a rural outreach tour, which is a 7-day tour where we a whole heap of riders traverse across the countryside, which we're doing actually this Friday, from Townsville to Cairns over 7 days, and we hold community events throughout those 7 days so that people can learn more about pain. So there's those three projects, and the big goal of building more, building our money pocket of money, fundraising plan, and our whole strategy and all of that. So that's my role now, is to just kind of take a step back, look at our long-term vision, and ensure that every team member and every volunteer feels valued and feels like they're contributing to something bigger. And that sense of direction is what my role is, and feeling really valued along the way.
Yeah. So are they a combination of awareness building and funding, or they're separate projects for separate targets?
Both. So yeah, the Go the Distance and Rural Outreach Tour is fundraising and sharing, and the local pain educator program is really building that capacity, building visibility of the local healthcare professionals in that community that want to start a better pain conversation, that want to get, chat with everyone else in the community and start to change the conversation around how we tackle it. So a bit of everything. It's all kind of interlinked.
Cool. And in 2022, you got involved in a thing called the Homeward Bound project. What's this about, and what are you aiming to achieve with that?
Yeah, so it is it's big vision. Homeward Bound is a global transformative leadership initiative. So it's a 2-year program, and each cohort, so I was in the HB7 cohort, has 100 women from around the world, all that women in STEM that want to learn about leadership, about building their visibility, and about making a positive contribution to the world. So what it looks like is a 12-month online program, which was incredible. We finished that in April. And then in November, we're going on a 3-week trip to Antarctica. And that's a leadership 19-day leadership initiative, where I will get the opportunity to share more about pain and come up with innovative ideas around how we can tackle it. And I would say that's the biggest thing. There's 2 things I've learned so far. It's one is when you build connections with people from around the world, that's pretty incredibly rewarding. And the second thing is I definitely have an echo chamber of people around me all love pain, and we're all like, this is hard. And then when I was working alongside people from 23 different sectors, you realize we all have complex problems. The problems don't get easier. It's who you share that problem with and how you navigate that. And that's been an incredible learning that I'm hoping to be able to transfer into the pain field in a deeper way post the trip.
Was this something that you'd encourage other young females to consider?
Yeah, I really would. And so part of my fundraising plan is hosting an Empowering Women Leaders in Healthcare event on the 26th of September. And I've got some really cool people coming to chat about their experiences in healthcare and how they've navigated different obstacles. So come along to that, or happy to share the link for Homeward Bound. And the reason why is because I know this is probably my goal focusedness coming out. I'm pretty sure that's not a word either. But I really do think we all have goals, dreams that we want to be able to achieve. And it's so easy to put them to the wayside and say, oh, that's not possible. And the program's really taught me that it is possible. I started the program thinking that, oh, I can't wait to be a leader, as if it was this like far thing that I was going to be able to achieve in 10 years. And the biggest thing I learned is I already am a leader. I have an opportunity every conversation, every day, to exhibit the qualities that I feel a leader or a great leader exhibits. So yeah, I just think it's been, I don't like to say this word too often, but it's been life-changing, and that anything's possible, and having a community around you, seeing a theme here, helps make that more possible.
Well, yeah, I like what you just said, that every conversation is an opportunity. And I think if your focus is chronic pain, or it's improving fitness, or improving sleep, or just being a more aware person, then each time we have a conversation with one of our patients or clients, however you want to describe them, there are opportunities to build a community which has got more awareness of that particular topic. So upskill yourself and then start to spread the word. And yeah, we are leaders. Like if you're having a conversation from a point of knowledge, then you're a leader. So take that opportunity to be positive about what you do and how it's projected. It gives us a really amazing platform as health professionals to help people, because we're doing the GLAD program here at the clinic, and we sort of trying to decide is best to do six sessions or 12 sessions. And part of our brain saying, well, 12 sessions is going to cost a bit more, so people aren't likely to do it. But the reality is it takes them 4 or 5 sessions just to get a basic split squat or exercise down properly. And so in a way, you're shortchanging the value that you're trying to give them by going for a short thing, because human nature doesn't learn things quickly. So it's really just been a learning curve, and it sounds really obvious, but it's better to do 12 sessions. And we've just got to say to patients, it's better to do 12 sessions. You'll get better value out of it because you'll learn how to do things properly. You're going to have group dynamics. You're going to enjoy it. And that's going to carry you forward, because now you've got a little community that you can continue your program with. And it's only the mental brain saying it's going to cost more, it's going to cost more, it's going to cost more. But what's the cost of life and quality of life? It's so silly.
No, I couldn't agree.
Yeah. So some questions sort of moving away. So we'll put the link down into the show notes for people for the Homeward Bound project for those amazing speakers, so people can use that. But what's the hardest lesson you've learned so far as a physiotherapist?
That's a good one. I'm still learning it, and I think it just comes down to well-being. You've said that we're care, like most health professionals that I've definitely met are caring by nature. So how do you, when you're trying to help people and achieve a great outcome for the whole, nation, community, or just one person, how do you still fill your own cup? And it's something that I actively work on every day and prioritize, but it would still be being in a physiotherapy profession. That's the hardest thing, is looking after yourself as well as looking after others, and that changes moment to moment. It's a decision moment to moment to make that choice. So that would be the thing on top of my mind most of the time.
The balancing act between care for our patient and care for ourselves. Yeah. For $200 or less, what's your best recommendation for an app or a tool or a book that you've read that's assisted your development as a professional?
So I like looking outside of the box. Done it for most of the 9 years I've been working as a physio. And it's a book that I would recommend called Difficult Conversations. So I actually enjoy having comfortable conversations when there's a shared goal in mind that you both want to achieve, but you both feel differently. And that can be, with a patient or with a health professional or a colleague if you're part of a multidisciplinary team or an insurance company. And I found it incredibly helpful into how to navigate those conversations with the goal in mind and keeping as constructive as possible so that you can reach that end goal. So that would be mine. It's really changed the way I think. And I think we sometimes we don't think about like the fact that we're talking all day, every day. So our communication skills, I know the research is showing it, that, the ability to establish a therapeutic rapport, but also how to navigate, tricky conversations, which we actually have every day, all day. It feels far-fetched, but, reading books on how to have those conversations can be really helpful.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you very much for that recommendation. What would you say has been your most out on a limb decision in regards to your career? And what was the outcome of that decision?
It would be I'll backtrack a bit. It would be the decision to do the 7-day outreach tour, which was in Victoria in 2020. I decided that I was going to do it. I hadn't ridden more than 5Ks to the local pub. And then I was planning to ride 860Ks in 5 months. That was a huge decision. And that took incredible commitment. And that choice led to me being like, well, if I can do this, I can move to Adelaide. And, the rest is history. I moved to Adelaide, form these beautiful connections. And I really feel happy with where I am and where I'm going. And yeah, it was interesting that, exercise and goals and different goals, maybe not pertaining to your professional life, can actually help you in your professional life. So yeah, that was pretty life-changing.
Thank you. What 3 things, and it's sort of a segue into this one, like what 3 things in your professional life stand out for you so far?
Just the opportunity to meet people.
A thematic.
Just a recent one with my transition to, so I'm pausing clinically at the moment. I will definitely go back at some point, but just the transferability of our skills, the problem solving skills, like it blows my mind how you can transition or have multiple jobs where their skills that we learn as a physio are just so transferable and helpful, and actually we're a really good person to be doing the job because of the skills that we learn in the physio profession. So meeting people, problem solving, ability. Last one would be knowing my values and then leading my values every day, and then pivoting if I need to. I'm definitely, have the values at my forefront and make sure that my work aligns with that. And I've made some hard decisions when they haven't aligned. And at the moment it was hard, and it was soul destroying, because you want it to be a happy decision, but it's always led to really great outcomes. And I'm going to keep honing in on and practicing that as I move forward.
Can I ask you what your values are at the moment?
Collaboration, funnily enough. Respect in every conversation. I'm not, I think it's okay to have differing views. I think we just need to have them more often with respect, with a deep respect that that person, valuing what they have to say, and knowing that if you're open-minded and curious enough, it will offer you immense value if communicated with respect. And joy. I just like to bring joy to every moment. So that'd be my top 3.
Thanks. If you could step back to your younger self, what are 3 pieces of advice that you would want to pass on, knowing what you now know?
You're never going to learn it all, so don't try. I think it's a really hard one to, the biggest unlearning I had maybe 4 or 5 years ago was I was just so stressed about knowing it all as a physio. And when I realized that the best thing I could do for the patient is be fully present in that moment, listening and hearing what they need and what their goals are, and just being present with them and working it out together versus having all the solutions, like mind blown. Like it became a little bit easier. So I wish I knew that, don't try so hard, but try so hard, if that makes sense. Like I give 100%, but you don't need to have it all figured out, but you do need to be present. You do need to be listening, hearing, and, working out what's meaningful for the person in front of them and how can you work together to achieve that. The second thing would be, don't take work so seriously. It's not the end of the earth. It's important. It's a huge part of my purpose, a huge part of my vision for life, but other things matter. Friends matter, life matters. All these other things are really important. And so keep that a priority as much as work is a priority. Third thing is just be true to yourself, and it'll all just work out. I wish I knew that. I'm still learning that.
You got the other 2 down. Well, the second one is that sort of that balance of care for yourself and care for your patient. And I think also, to me, that rings true along the lines of we are a reflection of our patients, in the sense that if we want to demonstrate well-being, then we have to be doing it, walk the talk, so to speak. So it's really nice when patients sort of say to you, look, I understand what you're saying because I can see you living what you're preaching. And I think that's another way of sort of saying, well, you don't take work so seriously, but at the same time, put in as much as you can, because we have the capacity to help people. But if you do too much, then you'll be able to help nobody. So finding that balance, and it's a moving set of goals. I think that's, that's what I found from doing this podcast, is talking to people 10 years out, 20 years out, 30 years out, and even 50 years out. There are different perspectives on where the goalposts are and what's important. And that comes often back to simply the background information, which is what's happening in their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's a good little thing. So, all right. Well, thank you for those 3 things. I'm sure the younger self would be much more, enlightened knowing all those things. But look, those words of wisdom, those pearls, those gems, whatever you want to call them, somebody that's struggling or, is only 5 or 6 years out and is listening to this, they're going to look at that and go, all right, well, I've always been told by people, if you want to know what's going to happen in 10 years' time, ask somebody that's 10 years older than you. And straight away have that conversation, and you get that insight of where you might be, where you want to go. And that's simply by having a conversation with somebody that's in that shoes at the time. Looking forward, talking more broadly now with the physio profession, where would you like to see it go in the next few years from your perspective?
If I had all the money in the world.
Let's imagine you have.
Great.
Bill Gates just rang you up and said, by the way, I've just realized I got 102 million on my tax return and I want to send you $500,000. What would you like to do with it?
I would just quite simply want every health professional to feel really supported in what they're doing. And be paid well for it. Like, be paid well to make those phone calls to the local GP, be paid well to do those reports, not have to do them after work. Like, include them in the multidisciplinary aspect of really great communication comes from valuing our time. And yeah, support in place that we have a community of people that are like, yeah, it's hard what we do, but we have got you and we've invested in you and invested in, those whole holistic well-being measures so that you feel supported, so that you can keep doing the work that you do for a long period of time and you feel great. That's my hope. I think that would be really cool. Yeah.
Well, I'll talk to Bill and we might go up to $1 billion for that one. $1 million might not be enough, but yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I've got a letter to write now. I'm after work. I haven't done all my notes. I'm having this great conversation with you, and I'm thinking, all right, yeah, that's so true, because this person, they're young, they've got persistent pain, they've had it for 12 months, they've traveled down here, new job, left their family, left their connections, the pain's got worse. They don't realize that the social aspects are contributing. They do have some organic stuff there as well, for sure, but it's probably blown out of proportion. So we need to go back to GP and say, look, let's look at those things. Don't start the Lyrica, don't start the Panadine Forte, don't, bomb this person out, because that's not really going to contribute positively. So it's having a bit of a difficult conversation with the GP, because I know what they're going to want to do. But really they need to give this person some space to work these things out, rather than hit them up with all this other stuff that's going to kind of confound or confuse the picture for the person that's dealing with these other bits and bobs. And then finally, where do you see yourself going in the next few years? Like, what is it that Abbie's got on her long toilet roll of goals? And you can hold it up if you want.
Yeah. I mean, I've got it there. Just leading a not-for-profit, hoping to improve pain outcomes, hoping to support everyone in that journey, people with lived experience, clinicians, researchers, people working in the pain area, to do that the very best that they can, and to keep, people in pain at the forefront. So that's my goal. Stay true, live my values, and stay humble.
Abbie, it's been lovely speaking to you. I know you're an amazing person, and you certainly bring joy to a lot of people, and you've got an amazing smile and personality, and you've brought a lot of joy to this conversation. So thanks for sharing your journey as a physio so far on Physio+10. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you, Doug. Thanks for the opportunity. And I got a bit teary before. I'm just so grateful for the work that you do in rural communities. It's much appreciated.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Physio+10, in which I trust you gained some valuable insights. It'd be awesome if you could leave your 2 cents worth as a review or rating of this podcast, and I look forward to sharing the story of another trailblazing physiotherapist with you in 2 weeks' time. Stay safe. Bye for now.